drew you and you drew me. Now these caricatures kissing, causing pain. My name is Waines, and we just had a CD release of sorts at the Media Club. Balls, cardboard cannons killing, lifeless grey construction, paper airplane fight schools. I think I'm basically a folk musician because I sit around with a guitar and talk about things that are going on for me. But the music itself, I think, has a lot of. I spent quite a few years in the theater, so there's a theatricality to the lyrics and the storytelling, and there are progressions that are unfolk-like, probably closer to jazz or rock, and so I guess it's a bit of a melange, but mostly I'm just the guy with the guitar and.
It was great. Well, Rick was just a good old friend from way back now. I met him through his ex-wife, who I went to music school with, who I became really close friends with, and met Rick through her. And so we just hung out and got to know each other, and he was into music and was just an overall really creative guy, like in the theater world, and has written plays and has an amazing story. And so we cultivated a great friendship out of that. And we were just having dinner one night, and he wanted me to help him record an album. It was the album before this album. And so we went to Lasqueti Island, speaking of Gulf Islands, where he has property, and just cooped up in a little cabin and recorded vocals and guitar for his first album. You could hear like the trees and the fire, which at the time was like romantic ambiance, sonic ambiance. But when we took it to Vancouver to like add to and to mix further, it just became sonic nuisance, right? Just like fucking crackling fire, like it's taking up the sonic spectrum.
The first set is called Magali to the Sea. I wrote it when I was in Brussels a couple of years ago, and I wanted to. A recurring theme in my life is, I guess, this sprint towards death versus a fear of it or holding back from it, and so I wanted to write a song cycle, a collection of songs that told that story. It's the story of Magali on her escape, and that escape and freedom and victory doesn't always mean that you survive. I was at this AIDS conference in the Caribbean, and I decided to hang out a little while afterwards because it was the Caribbean. And why would I go home? And so I was just hanging out on the beach. And a couple of days before I went home, and this woman, literally like movie style, walks out of the water with a baby on her hip and sits down next to me. And I noticed as they walked towards me that they didn't look well. Didn't make much of it, but she looked like too skinny, and the kid was scratching a lot. And she asked me what I was doing there, and I said I was at this AIDS conference. I told her I was HIV positive because it tends to be how I introduce myself. Back then it was definitively, I definitely wore it on my sleeve a bit more. And so she was quiet for a minute or two, and I imagined that this had to do with the fact that she was getting used to the idea that she was meeting someone that was HIV positive. Out of that silence, she said she had AIDS, so did her son, and she was showing him the world before he died. Her name was Annabelle, his name was Jaya, and they were in my life for like literally maybe 8 minutes, and in that time I learned that she had taken her son from the hospital, where her friends and her family, and I'm not sure about her friends, but her family and the doctors were really insistent that they stay at the hospital. And in 91 or 92, there wasn't really much. If you were really ill, there wasn't much besides, pain control that they could actually offer. but still, you can understand that there would be certain benefits to staying in the hospital. But she decided against all that opinion to take her son and show him the world. He was 2. I don't know how much of it he grokked, but I know that he, felt the wind and the water and felt pain, I'm sure, as they, and so for them, the image I've always had is that they were running straight at death. They weren't waiting around for it. They were like, oh yeah? All right, let's have at this. And so they ran. And whenever I think of them, I think that, if you make that choice and run towards death, you might trip, and you might fall, and you might get a cut, and you might have to take care of that cut along the way. And that if you do, death has no choice but to wait. And so that song cycle, Magali to the Sea, is for them. They've, profoundly affected the way I see the world and my life and the virus that I have. And I think it's important to know when to call her quits, and go, you know what, fuck this. I'm not gonna grasp at straws anymore, I'm not gonna stay here just because it's easier. You have to know when to say enough's enough, and they definitely taught me that.
Magali to the sea in his boat on this river. Magali to the sea in his boat on this river. Child, oh, 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 oh. Mother and child, oh, 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 oh. Mother and child, oh, oh, oh. Magali